All right, today we're going to tear into the latest financial report from Alphabet, one of the biggest, most powerful companies on the planet. We're going to go way past the headlines to really understand the story behind the numbers, the trends, the challenges, and what it all means for its future. So you got to ask yourself, right? When a company is worth over $2 trillion, how do they even begin to tell you how they're doing? It's not some simple press release. No, it's a super detailed, legally required document that lays it all bare. And here it is, the key to the whole thing, the Form 10Q. You can think of this as the official health check, the unvarnished truth about a company's finances. It's filed with the SEC, and it's the foundation for everything we're about to dig into. So here's our game plan. We'll start with those big, flashy numbers that make the news. Then we'll follow the money, see where it's coming from and where it's going. We'll also hunt for risks hidden in the fine print, and then wrap it all up with a final bottom line. Okay, first up, the big picture. These are the numbers that grab all the attention and give us that first quick snapshot of how things are going. Let's just start with revenue. Get ready for this number. In just 3 months, Alphabet pulled in $96.4 billion. That's more than $1 billion a day. Every single day. The scale is just mind-boggling. But, a big number is one thing. Growth? That's the real story here. And this wasn't just a flat quarter. Revenue jumped 14% compared to the same time last year. For a company this huge, double-digit growth is a massive sign of just how strong its momentum is. And that brings us to the bottom line, the actual profit. After every single bill was paid, Alphabet was left with $28.2 billion. That's a 19% jump from last year. So they're not just making more money, they're getting even more profitable. Okay. So we've seen how much they're making, but where is all this cash actually coming from? Let's pop the hood and look at the engines that power this machine. Well, no surprise here, the lion's share, a whopping 86%, is from Google services. We're talking search, YouTube ads, Android, the whole shebang. Google Cloud is making up a really solid 14%, and it's growing fast. And then you have other bets, the experimental stuff, which is still just a tiny slice of the pie. Now, when we look at the hard numbers, you can see Google Services is the workhorse, growing at a very healthy 12%. But look at Google Cloud. That's the star of this quarter, a 32% jump year over year. This is a huge piece of Alphabet's future, and it is absolutely on fire. You know the saying, it takes money to make money? Well, in Alphabet's case, it takes a ton of money. So let's flip the coin and see where all those billions are being spent. So as we're digging through the expenses, one number just kind of jumps off the page. Their general and administrative costs. Think of it like corporate overhead, spiked by $2.1 billion in just 1 year. You have to ask, what could possibly cause a jump that big? And the 10Q tells us exactly why. The report says it right there in black and white. It's almost entirely due to a $2.3 billion surge in expenses for legal and other matters. This is huge. It's a flashing red light showing the real, tangible cost of all the regulatory battles they're fighting around the globe. And that's not all, of course. Maintaining this empire costs a fortune. They spent nearly $15 billion just on traffic acquisition costs. That's the money they pay to be the default search engine everywhere. Another $14 billion on R&D. And the cost of getting content for platforms like YouTube is also soaring. Yeah, staying on top is not cheap. All right, now let's dig into my favorite part, the fine print. This is where you go beyond the numbers for this quarter and find the clues about what's coming next, both the good and the bad. And wow, there's a big one right here, a $32 billion all-cash deal to buy a cloud security company called Wiz. This is an absolutely massive bet, and it shows just how serious they are about turbocharging that fast-growing Google Cloud business. And speaking of those legal costs, well, the 10Q lays out a pretty intimidating list of headwinds. They're dealing with an antitrust verdict from the Epic Games lawsuit in the US, a cease and desist from Japan's Fair Trade Commission, a massive $1.4 billion privacy settlement. The list goes on. The message is crystal clear. The regulatory pressure is intense, and it's coming from every direction. Okay, we've pulled apart the revenues, the costs, the risks. So what's the big takeaway here? When you put it all back together, what's the real story of Alphabet this quarter? It's really a tale of two companies, isn't it? On one hand, you have this absolute financial fortress. Incredible growth, a cloud business that's on fire, and finally profitable. The economic engine is just humming. But on the other hand, that fortress is under attack from skyrocketing legal costs and intense regulatory pressure from all over the world, all while they're spending jaw-dropping amounts of money, almost $40 billion in 6 months, on things like AI infrastructure to secure their future.
And that's what it all boils down to, right? The company is a money-making machine, and it's investing like crazy in the future. But the storms on the horizon, the legal and regulatory ones, are getting bigger and bigger. So is this financial fortress strong enough to handle what's coming? That is the multi-trillion-dollar question this report leaves us asking.